So here we are, 1st of January 2022. So it's time to look back and reflect on what's happened on the channel in 2021. Personally, it was my hope that 2021 was the year of healing following the traumatic prior years. And while the lawyers have largely gone away, I still have dealings with my ex-partner, so not everything is final and concluded. I started the year being broke. I've ended the year being broke in pretty much the same situation. However, during the year I have cleared a whole load of stuff that had to be settled, dealt with. Basically a lot of the nooses that were around my head have now started to go. I'm in a much better situation. I feel much more secure. The accommodation where I live is much more secure for various reasons, which I'm not going to go into. But I think 2022 is going to be a better year. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So let's look at the channel. This thing you're watching me on. At the beginning of the year, we were just shy of 2,000 subscribers. That's 2,000 of you that subscribe to the channel. At this end of the year, we're over 2,800. So that's more than 800 people have subscribed to the channel in the year. So thank you very much for joining and subscribing to the channel and spending time watching me rabbit on about musical instruments and stuff that supports EDM. Now this is a niche channel, so 800 subscribers does not sound like stellar growth. But I'm actually happy that we've got 800 people on board, and that those 800 people are here majority to watch the videos that are produced and not just subscribing to the channel for the hell of it. So welcome aboard those 800 people. I would also like to take this opportunity at the beginning of a new year to thank the channel patrons. These are the people who sponsored the channel. You've recently helped me buy a new recording setup, which I'm not currently using. This is still the old recording setup, and there is a very good reason why I'm not using the new recording setup. I haven't had time to actually work out how to make it work yet. And yes, the theory is you just plug it in and away you go, but it's nothing is ever that simple. So you've helped me do that, and I'll be introducing that with videos that I start producing in the new year. I think the first video to get the new sound treatment is going to be the videos on the RD9. But I just need to figure out how it all hangs together and makes. Once you figure out the basics and the workflow, then hopefully that'll all come up. But thank you very much to the patrons, because you've made that happen. So thank you very much. At the beginning of the year, I purchased a second-hand camera for producing videos. This camera, and I have to be honest and say that looking at the videos with the microphone that's on top of it, and I know this microphone is good, but there are issues with the sound from time to time. But I think overall the camera has made the videos much more professional looking, and that combined with the LED lights that are here that actually illuminate me, actually I think have made the production of videos far slicker and easier for me than the original setup. That again, these lights arrived in February, the camera arrived Christmas last year, and the new tripod that it's sitting on is far more flexible and easier to move around than the old tripod was, so that again is another plus. But it's all been made possible by you guys, the Patreons. You have funded this, so that's why I'm saying thank you very much. This is where I do a plug for Patreons. So if you have been considering sponsoring the channel through patronage, it's a big word, isn't it? Then please do. Your money does not line my pockets. Your money actually helps me to buy the stuff that I need to run the channel and make it look a little bit more professional, and to allow me to do things with videos like the new sound recording system that's coming in the new year. Patronage is less than the price of a cup of coffee, so if you are so inclined, go over to the Patreon page, which is www.patreon.com/themusictechguyuk, and you'll find my Patreon set up, and if you so wish, you can subscribe. I found out in January that I'm a hashtag. What does that mean? Well, if you pump into Google hashtag the Music Tech Guy UK or hashtag Music Tech Guy UK, you will actually resolve to a number of channels that I own, I suppose is the honest answer. So you will resolve to this YouTube channel. You will also resolve to my social media feeds on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and Tumblr. Yes, I do have a Tumblr feed, and people follow me over there on Tumblr as well, but it's not my main feed. My main social media feed is Instagram, and the reason why I do have presence on those other feeds is particularly to protect the name rather than anything else. Otherwise, other people will poach your name on those platforms if you get famous. And I do have to laugh at that. Anyway, if you really want to follow me on social media and the hashtag, go over to Instagram and follow me on Instagram, because that's the one where I'm probably most likely to respond to you in the short term. I do review all of the social media channels probably about once a week, but the main one is Instagram. Now, this is an interesting point. So I found out I was a hashtag in January because a friend of mine did a Google search for that particular hashtag and brought back all these feeds and videos and stuff. So, you know, my hashtag is being searched and indexed by Google, and it's coming back as quite a high, well, it's coming back as the top. But what you need to do is, if you do become a hashtag, or you have a brand that needs a hashtag, you have to register your hashtag, and you register your hashtag with a company or a system called TWUBS. That's TWUBS. And while TWUBS doesn't really have a legal position for somebody trying to hijack your hashtag, if you have a registration on TWUBS with who you are and why you own the hashtag, then that can be produced in court to say, look, I own the hashtag, I registered the hashtag with this organisation, and this person is trying to be an imposter. So, just a word to the wise, if you become a hashtag like I have become, then you need to register your hashtag, and that's one of the things I did early in the year about the channel progression. So, hashtag the Music Tech Guy UK, hashtag Music Tech Guy UK are both my hashtags that relate to this channel. So, if you watch the channel regularly, you know that I have to respect the space of the people I live with, and therefore I can't have all my equipment here. So I have a few bits here, I rotate bits in and out, but most of my equipment remains in secure storage. And if you're wondering why I haven't produced any videos from the Goldfish Bowl recently, I know I said I would explain what was going on, but basically the builders have been in and we've had work done here on the kitchen. In fact, it's pretty much a brand new kitchen, and we've had a brand new bathroom installed, and they've been using the Goldfish Bowl to store all their tools and some of the materials. So it's not been really possible to do any videoing in the Goldfish Bowl because of that. They departed at the end of November. We cleared the Goldfish Bowl up in December, and we used the Goldfish Bowl for our Christmas dinner and other Christmas related shenanigans like playing games and drinking and stuff like that. So I haven't done any filming in the Goldfish Bowl for, well, probably about 3 months, I suppose. Was the last time I actually filmed videos in the Goldfish Bowl. But that's the reason why, because there's been work being done to this place I live in. So with that out of the way now, and the fact that we've cleared the goldfish bowl out, and I have actually got one of my keyboards back in the goldfish bowl for me to play, I will start doing videos again in the goldfish bowl, because over the winter this workshop isn't the warmest place in the world. In fact, before I started this video, I've got a little space heater that sits underneath the camera, and that was running just to heat it up so I can do this video and it doesn't feel like I'm freezing out here. But that we'll start moving back in there over the winter period, because A, it's warm, because there's heating in there, and B, you know, when I'm talking about videos about the keyboards and stuff, I can probably better position the cameras than I can do here. Although I actually have racking up here, I've done that in the workshop. There's actually rails out of screenshot up here for doing Helicam type stuff. I just need to get the adapter now for the new camera, so that I can actually suspend it properly. So that's about the goldfish bowl. Now we come on to what's been happening. I decided to do this on a month-by-month basis. So here we go. So you start at the very beginning, January. And probably the biggest event of January was at the end of January, after a long time, the Isla S2400 arrived, or 2400 depending on which way you look at it. Now, you know, I'm not having to go at Brad and Isla Instruments, because I understand a lot of what he's gone through, and I was prepared to wait, unlike some people who were sending Brad some fairly derogatory comments about the length of time it took for Isla Instruments to develop and eventually deliver the S2400. It took him 18 months from the point where I got the credit card out and said, okay, I want one of these things, to the point where it actually arrived here in the UK. So, you know, from that point of view, that was a long time to wait. But if you think about what happened in the meantime, first thing is, you know, they had to R&D the unit and finish what was going on. Then they had to source the parts, and then they had to put it into manufacture, which was done in the Far East, and then shipped to the US, with all the issues that were going on with supply of parts and pandemics and all the other stuff that went on. And I think actually he did a fairly good job of doing it within 18 months, if I'm honest, given the size of the outfit that Isla Instruments is. But that arrived in January. The second thing that happened in January was the channel was flooded, because of a video I did with Catalina, with queries about would people's instruments, or musicians' instruments, still work with Big Sur. And I've done quite a lot of videos in Mailbag, for argument's sake, talking about this. But if you're watching this, the reality is, if you have an instrument that relies on a 32-bit piece of code to do the interface between your instrument and the computer, and you're running Big Sur, the answer is it won't work. Okay, and that's very simple. There are some exceptions to that, but in general terms, it won't work. So there you go. But that was January. So after January comes February. And one of the big things that came apart in February for me and the channel was I'd ordered some stuff, and I discovered that following Britain's exit from the EU, Brexit by other terminology, the VAT trading arrangements had changed, and therefore when you were buying stuff on some of the portals, you were effectively being charged VAT at the end of the purchase process rather than during the purchase process, which I thought was a bit naughty, to be honest. But I did a bit of video piece about my disdain of this process. The other thing that happened in February that was of any note was the fact that I acquired some brochures about SoundSource Unlimited. Now, for those that don't know, SoundSource Unlimited was a company based out of California that made sound or tones for various synthesizer platforms that existed in the late 80s and early 90s. This particular catalogue, I think, was set around 1982, and it showed you all the sound source patches that were being sold by this particular company, and all the platforms they were being sold to. That's had quite a lot of interest by various people. I have done quite a few exchanges of the material, because people have asked for it, and it's been sort of like, well, what do you got to offer me in return? Some of it's been good, some of it's been not so good, but hey ho, that's the nature of the game. But that was really interesting, and that was February. Then we come to March. So I finally got round to doing some basic videos on the S2400 in March, and I expressed that I found the platform intimidating. That confused a lot of people, why I would find that intimidating. And I tried to explain myself by saying it was all to do with the fact that the workflow of the S2400 was so different to what I was used to. I haven't had an Akai MPC, a Roland, whatever it happens to be, I can't think off the top of my head. So that style of the Roland Groovebox, that's what I was thinking of, that style of workflow was quite alien to me. So the S2400 I have found challenging, I have to be honest. I find it a really interesting instrument to use, but I have found it quite challenging. And I will be doing some more S2400 stuff after Christmas, especially as there have been numerous firmware updates over the last few months, which I have yet to put on my S2400, that bring in a whole host of new features. So watch out for those, they will be coming. The next thing that happened in March, and this was a really interesting story I've kind of been following all year, relates to the rights of who owns, well, the rights to use the name Oberheim. Now, this came from the fact that Behringer have been teasing us with pictures of the UBXA, and also listed the Oberheim name as one of their trading names. Apart from in the US, where in the US their application for the Oberheim name was rejected in favour of Mr. Oberheim, as in Tom Oberheim, whose name it is. It has been a very interesting series of articles that have been published, which I've been following, and there's been various videos about that over the year. Of course, we all now know where we are now at the beginning of January 2022, that Tom has regained the rights to use the name Oberheim worldwide, after him and Behringer came to a deal October, November time, I think it was, eventually, when this happened. So, you know, that was a really interesting area, and the reason why I say I thought it was interesting, because you're talking about a legacy synth brand that actually loses the right to use the brand name. Anyway, and the other daft thing that happened to the channel this year, and it is actually to do with moving stuff backwards and forwards to storage, is I surrendered my car in March. And I basically sat back and thought, why am I paying all this money for this car that I'm not driving? You know, I was paying the leasing costs, I was paying the insurance costs, I was paying the road tax, I was paying, you know, and I wasn't driving this car. So why did I have it? And this led to a wider dilemma, because I got rid of the car and then realised, or then had the dilemma, how do I transport the larger pieces of equipment to and from storage to where I am now? Now, if you think about it, you know, a Korg T1 or a Korg Oasis or the Kronos, all those cases are roughly 6 foot long, and the housemates all drive small cars. So that became quite a dilemma for me, because I couldn't get a 6 foot long case in their tiny cars. However, the problem was solved, and I don't know whether I said this on the channel, when we found out that actually one of the housemates, in their car, the front seat folds flat, which does allow you nearly 8 foot of room to be able to push the case in. And the T1 case just about fits in it. And I know that because the T1 actually at the moment is here for another reason. So yes, there you go. So yeah, so I solved that dilemma, but it did actually cause me a dilemma. How do you get equipment backwards and forwards when you only have a small car? And that was March. April comes along and I started a discussion about what happened to the rack mount synthesizer. So back in the 80s, those of you who remember, you know, when they issued a synthesizer with keys, the manufacturers also issued a synthesizer without keys. You know, there were such classics as the JV1080, which was used by studios producers a hell of a lot. Then you had the M1R, the D550, the S550. You know, the list goes on. A lot of the manufacturers at the time were producing both rack mount and keyed versions of their synthesizers, maybe with slightly different names, but there was still a rack mount and key. Yamaha, I'm just thinking the SY77 and was it TG500? But effectively, yeah, they would issue in the rack mount and the keyed version of the synth, and you either bought one or the other or both, as in some cases. Anyway, there were various theories that I put forward, and there were various theories that other people put forward, you guys who watch the channel, and they basically came into one of a couple of areas. The first was cost to produce, actually maintaining two synth lines, whereas if you just make a keyed version, you only got to produce one set of tooling. Whereas if you make both, you're going to have two sets of tooling. So there's a cost base on that. And also the rise of the power of the computer. If you think about where we were back in sort of the late 80s, early 90s, kind of the IBM PC was quite in its infancy. We were at 286 processors that weren't very powerful. Prior to that, you know, you needed something that was kind of suited more to music, which is why a lot of producers around the time were on the Amigas and Atari STs, but the PC really didn't cut the mustard. Where we are now, you can you can run your DAWs on PCs, you can run your DAWs on Macs, and you can run all the VSTs on them as well. Well, within limits. I'm not going to get going on that, but that was basically where a lot of the query comments came back from. But what was really interesting at the end of this area was when I turned around and said, well, okay, actually, you know what, the rack mounts are coming back, but they're not coming back as rack mounts. So that's the interesting thing. They're coming back and being described as desktops, which is effectively the synthesizer without the keyboard. Or they're coming back in the form of things like boutiques, which is the sound module in a small form factor. But very interesting discussion that was had over that area. Also in April, I revealed that I had actually purchased a Jupiter X. It actually arrived in February, and I was trying to work out whether I could afford it or not. But I could, so I decided I'd reveal it in April, and it'd be hiding under a red cover, one of these red covers, for quite a few weeks actually, until I could justify actually buying it outright. And on another thing I did in April, which was on the request of several tubers, I did a series of videos about restoring the D70. Now, quite a few years ago, I'd done a video about restoring the D70 from a card, and when I did that, there was several people or several sources on eBay that were selling these cards off. So I bought one. It was the factory reset for the D70, resets the D70 back to where you want it to be. The problem is these cards are no longer in existence, or nobody seems to be selling them or making them. So it must have been somebody basically selling off old stock. And so people wanted to know how to do this by Sysex. It wasn't particularly obvious how you did it, so I did a series of videos saying how you backed up and restored the D70 using that mechanism. Many have commented how that has really helped you out over the past. I am exchanging emails with people on a semi-regular basis about restoring the D70. So that obviously helped some people out. But that was April.